We're back in northern Minnesota. We're on Lake Winnibigosh in particular, but goodness, what a summer. It's already July, and we've been dealing with so many fronts, so much wind, the forest fire smoke. I mean, it's just been a different year. I would say overall, fishing I'm seeing across the Midwest has been what I would call sporadic.
The weather's been changing quite a bit recently. It's been hot some days and cold other days, and been seeing a lot of fish stay shallow in that 8 to 10 feet of water. Catching a lot of fish recently on jigs and also on slip bobbers. So I think if we get out there today, we can kind of do a mismatch, switch up between those two and see what they're biting on.
I think what we're going to do to start off here is we're just going to drive through here with side imaging. This wind, I'm hoping, helps us. I mean, this is perfect. Gray skies, wind, these clear lakes. That's a good thing, but we're just going to drive through here and just cover some water with side imaging. And then we'll put the trolling motor down here and see if we can find them with the active target. But still use side imaging a lot to look for fish. This is a perfect situation to find fish with side imaging. Rolling sand in less than 20 feet of water.
Lake Winnie is one of the best walleye destinations in the state, and there's a little bit of walleye chop, which is going to help. The water clarity is super clear. Certain times you can see down 15 plus feet. We're probably going to target them in 9 to 10 feet, so this wind should be able to help, be able to get closer to them and pitch our jig and leeches on them.
We're just gonna throw slip bobbers, we're gonna throw jigs, we're gonna give these fish a little bit of variety here and just see what these fish want. All right, here they are. Oh, there we go, got him.
That?
I think so. That bobber just disappeared.
That's what we like to see.
It is, isn't it? You look at northern Minnesota, I think most anglers would agree with me. You cannot fish the wind enough. Wind is your friend on these clear water lakes. You know, you can see down 10, 12, 15 feet. Any kind of wind helps dramatically. And people talk about a walleye chop. You know, a lot of times if you don't know where to go, if you don't know where to start, just look at prominent flats and prominent pieces of structure where that wind is blowing in. And I would say most days you just can't go wrong fishing the wind. If there is no wind, try to fish yesterday's wind. But it's amazing how when the wind lays down, obviously the fish will get tougher, but also to remember that sometimes you just have to grind through fish or grind out spots, and sometimes you'll just get a little puff of wind where, for half an hour at a time, you'll just get a little bit of ripple. And it's amazing even what that does for the attitude of these fish. But when you have no wind, you're just gonna have to make further casts and just cast at more fish. And ultimately, if you make contact with enough fish, they're gonna add up. But it's amazing where you can definitely see windows where these fish are on and they're looking for something to eat. If you get anywhere near them, these fish eat it. Then there's other times where you can cast at 10, 12, 15 fish in a row and they hardly even move, or they just follow it down and maybe track it for 2 or 3 feet and then lose interest. And so wind is a big, big deal when you're fishing these clear lakes in northern Minnesota.
That one wanted the jig and leech. Oh,
yeah,
nice one too.
Good, I'll net it for you here. Well, maybe we're starting to figure a few things out. We still got a bunch of them up front of us there. What do you got?
What is that?
Sucker. That's what we're seeing up here.
That is.
The white sucker has broken many a man's hearts.
Wow. I thought it looked kind of funny, kind of dark.
Oh yeah. That's an important thing to point out in Minnesota, is if there's something that'll waste your time, In northern Minnesota, whether it's marking fish on side imaging or forward facing sonar, it's this guy right here, white sucker.
Yeah,
they look just like a walleye on all electronics.
Yeah, it's a tough one to try to determine if it's a walleye or a sucker.
Yeah.
And look at that, he ate my jig and leech.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so how do you tell them apart? Sometimes you just have to fish to find out. But one thing I always say, if it looks too good to be true, it usually is, in the sense that it seems like a lot of times these walleyes, you'll see them in like say 3 to 6, 7 fish in a pod, and then spread out there'll be another pack, but they'll be just in these loose packs. If it's just fish, 30 of them all in a big school, not to say that walleyes won't school that way, because sometimes they do, but a lot of times I find that, again, the rule, if it looks too good to be true, it's not. That's probably one of the easiest things. It's just if the schools just look too big, a lot of times they're suckers.
I think one of the determining factors is walleyes will be interested in your bait. They'll come check it out.
Well, that's
Suckers,
the thing.
they'll
Yeah.
just stay put and ignore your bait.
Great point. Yeah, I always say too, if you throw at a fish and doesn't even move, like you're invisible, a lot of times that's your sucker versus a walleye. So we're gonna have to just keep moving here. We're gonna have to keep hunting. Got him? All right. I'm gonna hit anchor here and help you. Nice. Oh yeah. I'll net them here for you. Now it's been kind of a little bit of a variety pack here so far. Oh, that's a lucky fish. Getting the pardon
Nice.
today. That'd be a perfect fish for the live well. You know what, Charlie?
Yeah. There we go. We found a little pot of fish there in front of the boat and unpicked the leech right off the bottom, gave it a little pop. That would have been a perfect one to bring home. Rigging up a jumbo leech here. One tip I like to do is get the sucker right on my nail like that. So then I can thread the hook right through the sucker and out the body just like that. And then once it gets in the water like that, it'll spread out and be about 3-4 inches long. I like the bigger leeches the better, but you can catch them on the smaller ones too. Lake Winnie is full of walleyes all over the lake on each part of it. So the biggest thing is just getting out on some of the expansive flats and some of the obvious points and just look for some pods of fish. And a lot of times you can find fish shallow almost any time of the year. Obviously the water clarity is super clear, so you might have to venture out deeper when it's hot and sunny and calm, but you can find fish in a lot of different areas on Winnie.
There, I got him.
Bobber down.
Bobber down.
That never gets old, does it?
No. Trying to debate what I like more, catching them on a jig or watching a bobber go down, and I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's just a perfect eater too, which, you know, you get in this part of the world, I mean, eating walleyes is important, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
a big part of it, and it's kind of nice to come out to places where you can catch some fish that you can eat, you know, as far as working around slot limits. And oh, come here.
Yeah, we're giving them a little 1-2 punch. You're throwing the bobber on them.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've found something that we've absolutely fallen in love with yet. We've been throwing at a lot of fish that wouldn't eat at all.
Right.
And goodness, we've caught one on a slip bobber and a leech. We've caught one on a jig and a leech. We've caught one on a slip bobber and a crawler. And we're not 100% sure, but one of the things that might be going on is there might have been a bug hatch here recently, because you were just on Leech Lake yesterday. Yep. There was a big bug hatch there. Not sure if that's why these fish are full and don't want to eat, but we're going to keep grinding away here. And sometimes you just have to will the fish will them to bite. Keep trying different stuff until you run out of time.
Yeah, the mayfly hatch is, you know, one of the best fisherman excuses, but we're gonna keep after it.
You can still catch them. Somebody always does.
That's right.
I'm just rigging up a crawler on this tungsten jig, and I like this tungsten jig for live bait. It's just a smaller profile, but it's just got that little collar where you can cinch up, whether you're using a leech or a crawler, and just stays pinned up. And that's how long of a snell I've got, but that's something to play with, because sometimes with this wind, it goes up and down a lot, where sometimes you can soften that by lengthening that snell, even going with a heavier weight and a lighter jig just to cushion it. And so that'll probably be the next thing that I experiment with here, is trying to figure out what these fish want. There you go. Nice. Feel like a good one?
Feels decent.
All right.
Oh yeah. Had to coax him into biting.
Yeah. Now, probably the most important thing, you know, when you're trying to break down some of these bigger flats, these big spots, is don't be afraid to fish through it fast, look through it fast, just to try to isolate where there's groups or clusters of fish. Whether you're using side imaging, it's probably one of the most useful tools if you have that, but cover some water to try to find fish, because these pieces of structure can be big. I mean, some of these flats, that might be 10, 12 feet of water for a long, long ways. I mean, several acres, hundreds of acres, you know, is how big some of these flats can be. And when you've got the wind blowing on it, you know, you can drift through these flats, you can long line, you can run harnesses behind your boat, you can run live bait rigs. There's different ways that you can look for fish, but be prepared to cover water until you get something that slows you down, whether you get a bite, miss a fish, catch a fish, but cover water until you start to see some signs of life, because it's peculiar how you can have a flat and everything looks the same, but for whatever reason, all the fish are in a 30 to 50 yard area. Every bite comes from a pretty small spot on a massive piece of structure. A lot of fish up there. There we go.
There we go.
They're saying there's a lot of fish in front of us. Why aren't they biting? Well, you know what? That's just as good as watching a bobber go under.
There's a nice one.
Yeah. There. Nice. Thank you, sir. Nice. Get that little short shank. These short shanks are deadly on live bait. I mean, you can use them on plastics too, but they just tip up when they hit the bottom. They've just got that little barb on the shank that really keeps live bait pinned up nice. Yeah, great walleye. All right, get her in the water. There she goes. You know, we're chasing these fish around these flats that are 9, 11, 12 feet of water. For this type of fishing, where a lot of times, you know, we're throwing jigs upwind, because, you know, when you're positioning the boat, you're trying to find fish, it's easier just to hold the boat and cast upwind. I'm a big fan of using just a high strand braid. This is Suffix 832, which in my opinion is just great for casting light jigs, especially if you got to cast upwind. Because the water is clear, I'm using a fairly long, about a 4 to 5 foot fluorocarbon leader that's 8-pound test. This here is that Northland stand-up jig. And I like tungsten a lot. I feel like it shows up a little better on forward-facing sonar. It's just a smaller profile, especially for casting upwind. As far as a reel, when I'm using forward-facing sonar, I like to use a reel with a really high gear ratio. That way, if you make a bad cast, you can bring it right back in and make another cast before you lose that fish. And just a good, high-quality graphite rod. You know, as far as a jigging rod, a 6.5 foot rod, a medium extra fast or medium fast action. I've been using these One Heritage from Shields. I mean, to me, that's as good as it gets. I mean, they make a phenomenal jigging rod. And so that's just the basic sniping setup. But Suffix 832, long fluorocarbon leader, a good graphite rod, and a reel with a high gear ratio. And when you're using these tungsten jigs, you can tip them with a soft plastic, you can tip with a crawler or a leech like we're doing here today. But when you can line up on a fish and just make a cast and get right in front of that fish, it's a good way to catch fish. We're seeing today you don't catch every fish. I mean, we probably cast at 10 fish that don't bite for whatever reason, but 1 out of 10 does. And I can't imagine how difficult it'd be out here without that forward-facing sonar technology. Got him.
Got him.
There you got him. All right. Nice work, Charlie.
Taking a little coaxing today.
Yeah, they're adding up though. We've caught a lot of fish, you know what?
Had some change in conditions, some wind, and the sun popped out.
There we go. Nice work.
Thank you. Another beauty.
What's the limit? 6 walleyes on Winnibigosh? And then they got to be less than 18 inches. So I mean, that's right there. I mean, that would be a fish you'd definitely measure to put in the box. But
yeah, there's a lot of good-sized fish under the slot out here on Winnie. Of course, you got to have a tape, make sure they're within the slot.
when it comes to using jigs, early in the year, like around the opener for maybe the first part of May into June, especially with cooler or cold water, I'm a big fan of using mono with jigs. I feel like there's a little bit of stretch there where by the time the fish feel you and you feel the fish has it. But now, get later on in the summer, especially if you have to cast upwind, which we're so often doing with forward-facing sonar, especially if you're casting over deeper water, I'm a real big fan of using just a high-strand braid that's really thin. It's super easy to cast, where you can get those jigs away from the boat, but then just using a longer fluorocarbon leader, anywhere from, say, I would say 3 feet would be short for a leader, all the way up to maybe 6-7 feet. And you can use an FG knot if you're in a hurry. An Alberto knot will work fine, but as the summer progresses, I'm using braid more and more for jigs. And if I'm using jigs and plastics, I'm almost always using braid. But this time of year, it's all about two things: the cadence, as far as popping that jig, how high to get that jig and how far to let it glide. And then a lot of times we're just mixing in some quivers or some shakes, but getting near that fish and just see whether the fish want to follow it down, or if they want to chase it at their level, or if they want to come up for it. A lot of times if the fish want to swim vertical up, a slip bobber is pretty tough to beat. But you'll see, I mean, when these fish are on, if you drop anywhere near those fish, you'll just see that mark representing the fish, and that jig will drop next to that fish, and that fish will just tilt up and follow it right down to the bottom. And so a lot of times when we're pitching jigs like this, you know, those fish are just sucking it right up off the bottom. Got him?
There we go.
All right.
I just had to leave it sit still on the bottom. I mean, I could tell they nose down on it. But.
Yeah, conditions are definitely changing through the day. The sun's come out now, and
might be a better one, Jason.
all right, I'm getting the net. But yeah, the sun's coming out, the wind's laying down, and you can about see the bottom here in 12 feet of water. Now that one would be too big to eat, but it is a fun fish. Nice, nice, nice.
Nice.
Good job.
There we go.
Nice
that one's
work.
Got a little more shoulder on it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful fish.
I just love that when they pick up the leech on the bottom and you know that it's got it in its mouth.
Yeah.
Starts peeling some drag. Sweet.
I got one following me here. Come on. There, I got him. That was cool. This feels like a good one, Charlie.
Pulling some drag on you.
Yeah, staying down. You know, that's the cool thing is, you know, you learn so much about how these fish respond. You know, you can watch the fish respond to your bait. It seems like the fish want it just kind of swimming past them versus dropping down.
Good one.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, huh? Oh, yeah. Oh!
Sweet.
We were just talking about catching supper. Well, you mix in a couple like that once in a while, that just kind of caps off the whole day.
Yeah, when you can pair up, you know, them eater-sized ones that you
Oh,
put in the
yeah.
box with a couple hefty ones.
Yeah,
That makes for a
good,
great
good day. Yeah, we'll show this girl off. Got that little tungsten jig, winds laid down, so I downsized. I went to a smaller, like an 1/8 ounce. Oh, settle down, girl. Yeah,
Wow.
nothing wrong with that. Short shank tungsten.
Awesome.
That's where it's at. You're using live bait, in my opinion. That's a nice walleye. There she goes. And, you know, one of the things to me that is maybe it's eye-opening is just in this clear water how often where these fish won't let you get over the top of them. When it was windy, we'd get about maybe 30 feet was kind of the sweet spot. We could make a cast and catch a fish. If we got closer, we bumped them. Winds laid down, and it seems like that distance is increasing. Where now we're trying to keep the boat back maybe, I would say 40 feet, 50 feet, and making a cast at those fish. And if we get closer, they just push away from the boat, and that's eye-opening. You know, we suspected that, we knew that, you know, with long lining jigs or long lining cranks back in the day, even long lining rigs or running planer boards, we've known that fish spook from the boat.
Right.
But when you can actually see it and see how that bubble changes with different conditions on different bodies of water, to me that is so eye-opening.
And we tried to catch them at that 35, 40 range, and we quickly realized that we had to target them a little
increase the
further out.
distance.
Yep.
Yep.